Hi thinkers, welcome to ThinkX Academy. This is the follow-up tutorial of the JavaScript basics. In the previous tutorial, we just saw how we can just link the JavaScript with the HTML. And in the browser here, we have seen how we can actually print something on the console. So in this tutorial, we are going to proceed with data types and operators. Basically, in JavaScript, there are five types of data types, which is basically used to represent what type of data you are using. And since you may be already knowing that there are different types of data that we can deal with, which is it can be some numbers or some strings, and basically that's why we use data types to represent what type of data we are actually using. So we are going to discuss these five types and we are going to see how to use them in JavaScript. So first of all, we will create some variables, and variables are basically just names that can hold some data. So we create a variable using the var keyword, which is var. It's similar to variable, just a short form. And then we can choose any name of our choice. So let's choose a name. Let's say name equals. And now we will initialize it with some string. So let's say the string is ThinkX Academy. And we will save this. Now you can see that variable name is a variable which holds this string, which is ThinkX Academy. And instead of using double quotes, you can use single quotes also. It will also work. And basically this is how you can create some variables with strings, right? And we can also write some comments using these double slashes, and I will write here that this is a string basically. Now in the next line, I'm going to create some more variables. Let's create a variable a, and I will assign it to some number, which is 20. Now if you have already come from other programming language like C++ or Java, you might be knowing that instead of var we use int or float, string, and these types of data. In JavaScript, things are a little bit trickier, where JavaScript does not consider the type of data which is proceeding in front of the variable which we are assigning to the variable. What it does is it treats all the data as same, right? So if I create variable a equals to 20, and if in the future I want to assign it to a string, let's say my name Vishal, and this will be legal, right? This will be legal in JavaScript, which means this will work. If I will try to print this in the console, I can use console.log, and here I will display the value of a. And remember that in JavaScript we have to use this semicolon, which means we are going to use it to end a particular line, right? So now you can see if I will try to print the value of a in the console, you can see it's showing me my name. Now this is kind of trickier, and it can also be a lot of confusing for the developers also, because you can see in case we are let's say we create some variable and we assign it to integer, and what I want is the purpose of this variable is to hold integers only, and somehow if I will try to assign it to string, it is not showing me any warning or error that you're trying to assign an integer as a string, right? So that's kind of confusing, but still you can see that JavaScript is basically used to change the elements of the HTML tags and perform much operations like backend and that, and so we will not be that much concerned about the situation here. So basically there are five data types in JavaScript. Two we have already discussed. One is the string and the second one is the number. And one more interesting thing is you can actually print out the type of some variable. So let's say we want to print what is the type of this variable a. I can actually do this. So if I will save it, you can see in the console it is showing that it is a number. So we can use this type of to find out what is the type of this variable. Now you might be wondering why we are studying these data types and all this variable things. Now the answer to it is that these are the basic foundations. Although these look boring, and the few tutorials that we are going to discuss in JavaScript series, which includes functions and document object model, and there are some things that will be boring, but they are the basics, right? We will have to grab these basics, and because we will be using variables to which will capture some of the classes that we will create in the HTML, and I have reserved that for some future tutorials. So basically it will not take much time for you to grasp these basics, right? All right, so now we have studied string, number. Now let's study another type, another data type, which is Boolean value. A Boolean value can be a true or false, right? So that's, it has two values, it can be true or false. So now if in the console I will try to print what is the type of the value b, you will be able to see that it is a Boolean value, right? So this is the third type in our JavaScript. We have these three types. The next type is the undefined type. So let's suppose a programmer creates a variable, let's say name2, and he does not assigns any value to this particular name. So this is known as undefined type, right? This is undefined, and if I will again try to print the type of this variable, which is name2, it will show me that it is of type undefined. In the output screen you can see that. So this is the fourth type. Now you can, there is one more type, which is that you can actually assign name2 as null, and null means basically nothing, which basically means that it is a null reference. And in undefined, we do not assign any reference to it, but when we assign some reference to it, internally it might be working as some pointer related stuff. I'm not exactly sure as why it is necessary, and we will discover that in the further tutorials. Maybe it is done because of some memory leaks, because I remember that when I studied C programming, I was always told that you should assign these variables to some null reference, or else they will be pointing to some memory and cause that memory leak stuff, right? So that's something fancier, and I'm going to skip that. So now you can see I have assigned it to null reference, and now if I will try to print the type of this variable, which is name2, by using the type of keyword, now you can see it will show that it is an object, right? Instead of when we are assigning it null, it means that it is actually pointing to an object which has basically nothing, and it is a null object, right? So it now, instead of undefined, it is actually pointing to a null object. We will study about more about objects in the further tutorials, and this information that we have studied about null might be useful in some future cases. So we can also let's study about some basic operators that we can apply. So let's apply an operator. Let's create another variable c, which holds the value of a plus b, right? So a is 20, and let's assign b as 30, because you cannot add 20 plus 2, right? So variable c is this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just console dot log the value of c. Now you can see the value of c is now 50. So this is basically an addition operator. Similarly, you can use this slash symbol to do the division. So now you can see it will show you these decimal values. You can even perform subtraction like this. It will show a negative value, and then Here you can also use multiplication, which will show 30 into 20 equals to 600. Let's see whether the modulus operator works here or not. What will happen if we type modulus? Now you can see it is showing 20. Okay, so let's change this to B modulus A. I'm not sure if it works here or not. Okay, so if I divide this, we get the remainder as 10. So we can use different data types. We will study when we will study how to actually create these elements. Most of the times we do not use operators that much in JavaScript, and if we will use it, we will see it in the further coming tutorials. So basically in the next tutorial, we are going to study about arrays, which is again a very important topic. And then we will proceed with functions, and finally we will be able to understand document object model, and we will see how we can actually change the elements of the HTML, which will give a dynamic effect, which means that without even refreshing the page, let's say we will click on a button and things will change dynamically, and it is basically why JavaScript is used for. So that's all for this tutorial. Thanks for watching.